Hello again. This is Chris Myers shuffling in with another episode of the Cinema Shame podcast. Now, I want you to think about some of the great one-and-done directors in their sole films. Like Charles Laughton in Night of the Hunter, Herc Harvey in Carnival of Souls if you're into that kind of thing. Maybe even David Byrne in True Stories. Are you there? Good. Now, I want you to crumple up that thought and sashay it away, because today we're going to tango with 1987's Dance Goddess, a much more infamous one and done by director Hamid Khan. Now, for sure this film isn't Cholet, but bringing us some sexy moves today is special guest Paul Frieteg-Fey. Dance is so important to me, and so is telling you to like and subscribe to us on the podcasting service of your choice. 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's go.
Hi, welcome to a very special episode of Cinema Shame, where I, your co-host, Allan Mott, has forced your other co-host, James Patrick, and our guest, Paris cinema polymath Paul Frieteg-Fey, to watch a movie you very likely haven't heard of until now, but that I feel very strongly everyone should see immediately. During the middle of lockdown in 2021, I was looking for something to watch on Tubi and came across a movie from 1987 that I had never heard of. It appeared to be a low-budget indie musical, which is something you don't come across too often. I turned it on and my jaw dropped as I realized what I was watching. To my eyes, it was, and remains, as good an example you can find of a sincere, visionary filmmaker doing everything he can to make his vision a reality, despite the fact that his vision is almost delusionally naive. Chances are you're familiar with Tommy Wiseau's The Room, James Nguyen's Birdemic Shock and Terror, Amir Shervan's Samurai Cop, and Ed Wood Jr.'s Plan 9 from Outer Space as famous examples of this phenomenon. Well, I believe that Hamid Khan's Dance Goddess deserves to be as equally well known as those films.
Excuse me, could you tell me where I'd find Doc?
He's not here right now.
Well, do you know when he'll be back? It's very important that I speak to him.
Oh, what's the matter?
Well, I've just come in from London. I'm a dancer.
London? I'm from London, too.
Really?
Hey, Kathy, could you go through that combination again? Why don't we sit down over here? By the way, my name's Mike. What's yours?
Hi, I'm Julie.
That's why we're breaking the format a bit for this episode. Normally, when we invite a guest on, we allow them to choose the movie we discuss. But in this case, I did not give Paul that option. That's because I know he is one of the world's preeminent experts on fringe and forgotten cinema. And the fact that this wasn't on his radar, and I had to tell him that it existed, meant it was a cinema shame he didn't know he had. For the past several years, he has exposed me to many wonderful and terrible movies I would never have seen were it not for the curated streams he hosts on a regular basis. And this was my chance to return the favor. Normally, we'd begin by asking how come Paul had never seen Dance Goddess until now. But instead, I'll begin with this. Paul, how would you describe this movie to someone who has never seen it before, which is virtually everyone listening to this right now?
I don't know that I ever would describe this to someone or attempt to describe it to someone. Dance Goddess, it is something special. It is a musical. It has a lot of dancing. It's about a girl with a dream. And I think that's something that we can all kind of get on board with. Just watching this girl have her dream to dance on Broadway.
She has her dream over and over again.
So many dreams.
She has the dream.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all she has.
Tell me what brings you here.
Well, I have a dream. I want to dance on Broadway.
The thing that really sort of blew me away and why I feel like it's a movie more people should see is that it's a textbook example of what happens when someone who grew up in a foreign film culture comes to America and decides to make a movie and does so like in America, but does so in a way that is entirely relevant only to the foreign film culture that they come from. Dance Goddess is essentially a Bollywood movie made by I'm a South Asian man. I don't know where he's from exactly, but it is made with almost entirely white performers, and all of the songs, which are very Bollywood in sound, are performed in English. So it represents this sort of culture clash on screen that is very hard to describe. But if you know enough about Bollywood and you see this movie, it is kind of enchanting just how this movie is able to just sort of exist on its own terms, even though it shouldn't.
Got to hold on to my dream. Got to hold on to my dream. No matter how hard it may seem. Got to hold on to my dream.
No, that is all fair. It actually kind of reminded me of the kind of like the Film Mirage was kind of the company that was doing a lot of these things that were like Italian and other European nations, mostly Italian finance movies but they were shot in like New York or Florida, and so they were shot in America, so the U.S. technical films, and had, I guess, American actors in them, but they were clearly coming at it from a very different angle, and were clearly kind of operating by their own set of rules. There was a lot of post-sync sound being used, and Dance Goddess is never like exploitative, really. It's never seedy, and I kept expecting it to be seedy, but it never really
wants to be.
It wants to be.
Well, I think the reason why it is to, like, the first time I saw it, in terms of the way it looks visually, the film I kept thinking of was Tim Kincaid's Breeders. To me, like, they look very similar. They're shot on New York. A lot of the street shots are obviously stolen. The actors are sort of that level, and also like the cinematography. But at the same time, it has sort of the innocence of a Bollywood movie. And I think that's sort of what I found really charming about it, is that it looks like a seedy, like, movie that you would see on Times Square, but that has all of the innocence of like a South Asian movie from the 80s.
Well, Doc, I've come to New York with a dream. I want to be a star.
I think you are a star.
I don't know any other people here in America, so that's why I really need your help.
Yeah, it's very let's just kind of put on a show. It's Mickey and Judy kind of, like, where there's only the most base conflict that happens.
Well, there's no plot, and it's fascinating because it not only is there no plot, but what plot there is rushed. Like, it's like, we got to get to the next dance scene, so we'll have this conversation and then dance, have this conversation and dance. But in terms of like the actual, like, we'll go over sort of like the scene by scene sort of thing as we go on. But essentially, the plot of the movie is a young woman comes to New York from London, wants to become a Broadway star, and becomes a Broadway star. That's the plot. Like, there's like literally no complications. There's no conflict. Like, there's some off-screen conflict, but you don't actually see it. And I think, and that's sort of like part of the wonder of watching it is like, at what point did like the filmmaker go like, this is what a movie is? Like, it almost felt to me like he was remaking Staying Alive and just getting rid of what he thought were all the boring parts.
But here's my observation. Per line of dialogue, this has the greatest percentage of exposition in any film I have ever seen, and yet no plot.
Yeah,
we're explaining the same plot point via exposition in every single conversation. Everything that happens is, I have a dream. I'm going to go get my dream. And then she gets her dream.
Yeah.
In terms of presenting obstacles in Hero's Journey.
Well, it's because they're like, it's literally, I have a dream. And it's like, well, obviously your dream is going to come true. You are a very beautiful woman and you are a very great dancer. Like, like, she doesn't, like, there's literally nothing.
The only thing she has to overcome is the advances of the lecherous dancer in the company. And he's like, okay, well then that's fine.
And she agrees to marry him in the end. And like, even like the character who's set up as going to be her main conflict goes like, you're a great dancer, I'm going to help you. Like that doesn't even end up going anywhere. But let's start from the beginning. It starts with what some of my favorite parts of this movie are the stolen street shots. Like there are a lot of like, if you want to know what New York City looked like in 1987, especially Times Square, this is a great movie to put on.
No permits were gotten in the filming of this
exactly.
movie.
Yeah. And there's some like that. There are a couple of scenes that to me reach sort of like Vanilla Sky level of like, you know, using that area of the city like sort of just that successfully. But we also like have stolen footage of like a motorcycle cop parade that we see for no reason. Like it's pretty fun. But we begin with Julie, who is in the credits is credited as Dance Goddess, but everyone calls her Julie in the movie.
I don't think her real name is Dance Goddess. I think that's a moniker that she takes on. Her real name is Julie, and she's from England, as we learn. Not that
she doesn't have a trace of an English accent.
Nothing.
Like not even a little. She's not even attempting a little bit, and it's hilarious because she meets this guy, and he goes, "Oh, I'm from London too," and he's obviously dubbed. And he's not dubbed by someone with an English accent. And I have a theory about this because if you watch a lot of Bollywood, you will notice that, especially like the Hindi language Bollywood films, is that the people who made them are really terrible at picking out English accents in the English language. Like they basically, to them, all white people sound alike. Because you'll watch a movie where the bad guy is supposed to be German and they'll speak with an Australian accent and vice versa. Like you will not, like, it's very rare for you to see a character who is supposed to be from someplace actually talk like somebody who that's fair because like I know there are some famous Bollywood stars like Katrina Kaif who are supposed to have very strong like Hindi accents because they don't speak Hindi like originally, and to me they sound exactly the same as everybody else in that movie. I can't pick them apart, but I feel like the director like really could not tell the difference between an English accent and like an American accent, and so he was just fine with that. And that's especially true when he basically makes the decision to dub this one actor, because there's one actor whose entire performance, like there's some ADR moments throughout this movie, but there's only one actor who's dubbed from beginning to end. And I presumed it was for he sounded too gay reasons. I mean, it could be possible another explanation, but that just seemed to be the most likely. And I'm guessing someone had to point that out to the director, and that's why he ended up doing the ADR for that character's entire performance.
I think it's just as likely that they just forgot in this case. Like they just didn't really care enough or pay attention enough to like the dialogue in the movie, because it's pretty irrelevant to the movie as a whole, that they're just like, I guess they were supposed to be British, but we forgot. We just hired some guy. So
I'm torn on that, because one of my theories is that one time, it's like sometimes like how you can tell a director was completely indifferent to the project was not by what they change, but by what they leave in. So like if they have like a line of dialogue, like let's go in the basement, and they obviously go into a garage. It was like that was a director who was like couldn't be bothered to make a simple change that would have taken them literally 1 second. And I feel like Hamid cared too much about this project to be one of those directors. Like I feel like if somebody, I don't know, maybe it's just like he was like, it was his vision was she has to be from London for some reason, and he couldn't find a British accent, or because I'm sure somebody at some point had to tell him like these people are from London and they don't speak like anyone who from that part of the world would speak.
Maybe they meant New London, Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. That's possible. Or you know, from New England. He thought they were from New Hampshire. Like.
Where were you hiding so far?
In London.
You're from London?
Yes. Your friend Ali asked me to see you whenever I need any help.
You know him?
Yes, I know him well.
So Julie has come to London, to New York City, to become a Broadway dancing star, and she stops at Con Dancing Studios, which is owned by Doc, who is apparently like a New York City star maker because he has these contacts to get certain dancers like the big opportunities. Make it big in show business. And this film highlights sort of one of the weirder things I find in movies about dance, is that like it's all about becoming a star as a dancer. But if you look at the history of dancing, it's very rare for a dancer to become a star as a dancer. Like inevitably, like there are people who started out as dancers to become stars, but it's usually after they retire from dancing or they go into someone else. Like Paula Abdul, like was a famous choreographer in Laker Girl, but she didn't become a star until she released her album. And I think there are a lot of cases like that, or like Bob Fosse, he didn't become famous until he became a director. It's like you have to do something else to become famous as a dancer. It's very rare for someone to become so like being like a lead dancer in a Broadway show is not a path to fame. Like there are very few who like that's the only thing they ever did and that are famous for it.
Well, they didn't have So You Think You Can Dance yet.
Well, even then, the people who we still know from So You Think You Can Dance are people who did non-dancing stuff afterwards, like Twitch from the Ellen DeGeneres show. Like he became her DJ, or what's her face? She starred in Footloose, the remake of Footloose. Like she's like one of the only like.
I don't think that helped her career exactly. Though.
Yeah, exactly. But still, like if we remember it at all, we remember her for her acting, not for being on So You Think You Can Dance.
But that's the thing. I don't think they had access to a lot of people that could act during the course of this film. So I think trying to voice like I'm going to be a dancer / actress, that would have been a little out of the range. I think the cast of the movie pulls off the dancing part fine. Yeah. When they try to extend themselves into anything else, it just kind of falls off the rails. So it was probably a limitation.
Well, I mean, if you look at this in terms of the context of like Heavenly Bodies, we'll say, which is cardio dance instructor / TV host, and we go along with that as far as it takes us. So why not, right? I mean. Why are we watching this movie? It's not because we have some semblance of disbelief about whether she's actually going to be a star dancer. We accept.
Well, we though, because my problem was that
we accept Allan.
Because every time she was in a group dance scene, I never found myself like looking at her.
I had that question myself. Like, was she supposed to be the best dancer, or are we foisting the like she's a star? Like, was there an ulterior motive to making her the not best dancer in each group that she had? And I'm like, no, they just didn't have an alternative there. That's
well, it is because there's at least like there's a dancer who is in the first dance sequence, which is like basically like showing that Doc has the power to get people jobs. And I actually thought she was better and more charismatic than the actress who plays Julie.
Are you talking about the woman that looked like Susan Powter?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. With the well, actually, there's two of them because there's that one, but there's also the one who actually looks kind of like Dance Goddess, but she's slightly more ethnic, and maybe that's why. That's maybe why like he.
I thought the movie was going to be about her.
Yeah. And Julie meets Mike at the studio, and it's one of those things where she's literally like known him for 5 minutes, and Doc is sort of like, oh, you've come here to New York, to dance. Well, I'm gonna make you a star. Mike, go take her on a trip on the town. Like, I'll pay for it. And she starts making out on the street with this man that she's known for literally 10 minutes. And
it's not even much of a sell. Like, Mike gets kind of this carte blanche to take this woman out on the town, show her New York City, and they like wander around Central Park and go in a boat, and this is showing her around.
They do the boat, they do the carriage ride.
Don't forget the ping pong.
The ping pong.
Ping pong is huge in New York.
With the Louise Brooks Pandora's Box.
Like there's nothing. There's nothing in this apartment. The walls are bare except for a Pandora's Box poster on the wall. Like, what message am I supposed to receive from this?
It's because I feel like at the same time, like, I think this was a film that could only be made by someone who really loves movies. but at the same time, like his taste is just so unsophisticated, we'll put it kindly, that it's sort of like weird that he was as passionate as he was.
Well, we're on this particular moment. I have I was taking notes on my phone, and I have like a 4-paragraph note about this take her out to New York City like rampage, and I really want to dig into this for a minute, just while we're here. All right, so
yes.
He says, take her out in the town, show her New York, New York. No one says that. No one from New York says that. We cut to a rowboat in Central Park. You're seeing nothing. You're in a rowboat in Central Park. And this is where I go, what the actual fuck is going on here? Because a score kicks. Wandering around scenery, and the score is still going. We're still got this creepy score going on. And then they're like frolicking around, kind of getting sexy, and I'm doubling down on this is going to go really poorly. And then we're playing ping pong, and the score stops. And my note is, what the fuck is this movie? Where's the death?
And the thing that actually ended up shocking me is that at the end of it, they have sex. They sleep together. It's a very subdued sex scene. But I'd already at that point caught the vibe of the movie. So the fact that there was any sex at all shocked me.
The seduction moment is, what's your type? You're my type. And then they're getting naked. Like that's the entire lead in. And like many things in this movie, he films it in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's just the reflection of the sexy times.
Yeah.
Just like he films an entire dance sequence earlier in the reflection of a mirror. We're not like, there's no shift. There's no like, hey, let's do this arty thing for a minute. No. The whole thing is just kind of vaguely filmed as a reflection.
My boss Maggie's got a crush on me. She's a really great choreographer, but I really don't love her. She's just not my type.
That's all? Well, can I ask, what is your type?
You are my type.
That's why I'm sort of stuck on the ending, because I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a triumphant ending or if it's supposed to be a bittersweet ending, because knowing what I know about Bollywood and sort of the things that Julie does will seem so innocuous to us, especially the way they're shown on screen. But in terms of Bollywood, they would be extremely scandalous. Like the fact that she sleeps with Mike is a huge deal.
But only he takes his top off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, they literally wouldn't kiss in a Bollywood movie. So the fact that
I think that may be like Hamid Khan, the director, kind of showing like, no, this is going to be rough.
Yeah.
This is the rough part. Yeah. Because there's like an actual sex scene. She actually, I mean, a sort of sex scene. There's an implication
no sex in the sex scene,
that there was that
they had sex.
They wake up nude. I don't know. They could have just been doing something else that didn't. I don't know. I'm not judging them, and I don't want to cast dispersions on her by any means. But I think in the end that's just kind of part of like what he's doing, what New York brings to it. And in the end, like I do see it as like it's redeeming, because she does get what she wants, and that's what her wants. That's what her dream is. All of her dreams.
This scene does have the one line that actually made me shout at my TV set. And that's when Mike tells her about Times Square and goes, yeah, it's the heart of New York City, just like our Piccadilly Square. And I was like, neither one of you is from London.
Yeah.
We're going to be dancing in Times Square.
Times Square, isn't that where all the Broadway theaters are?
Yeah, it's the heart of New York City. It's just like our Piccadilly in London.
I wrote in my notes, I was like, wait, someone's from London? Question mark, question mark. I didn't pick up on that at all. And maybe it was mentioned, but I just glossed right over it until he said it again. I'm like, no. No.
And also, the scene like has a tiny bit of important plot stuff because Mike tells Julie that he is having having an affair with his choreographer Maggie, but he doesn't love her because she's not his type, and that's when he tells her that Julie is his type. And then we find out he's a liar because after Mike takes Julie home, he goes to see Maggie, who, and this is another sign that there's something wrong with Maggie. She's smoking a marijuana cigarette, and she's upset and tells Mike that he doesn't care about her, and he lies and insists that he loves her, despite the fact that we just saw him one scene ago say that he does not love her. Mike is not to be trusted, and then they have a dance number.
Well, honestly,
with the most
with that,
awkward, forced smoking scene. And where is the cigarette the rest of the time?
James literally, while he was watching this, sent me a screen grab of this scene. Like what the fuck is this?
Specifically when they're both going like this backwards, like the Matrix.
Well, and how would Maggie not be your type? Maggie has awesome like Boy George hair. I'm all about Maggie. Like, clearly Maggie is the winner. She talks about things other than just having a dream. She was the most well-rounded character in the story. She is.
Yeah.
I want a sequel that just
she's
deals
a pothead, so you can't trust her.
All the more reason.
And I think she had her bed is a very small mattress on the floor, and based on anything we were given, she has one high chair that she sits in the window of her apartment. Yeah. And that's where she does her choreography. Notepad.
Well, that's the other sort of thing, is that I get the sense that Hamid doesn't understand what a dance studio is. Like I feel like he thinks that it's it's a dance company, because Mike talks about like how Doc is his boss and and he pays him, but no, if it's a dance studio, unless you're an instructor and you're teaching people how to dance, that's what you do at a dance studio. It's different from a dance company where you put on performances, but that's not what they do.
We did not focus on that whole aspect. It was like they were cattle.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, a really great slice of beef wandered into the studio.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've got the butcher for you.
It's almost like he's an agent, and he has these people hang out in this dance studio just so they can do routines for the person who he wants to get a job. And
there's no contracts as far as I can tell. It's sort of just a unspoken understanding.
Yeah.
When they come into the studio, they're like housed
it's a cult.
under his protection.
You can say it. He's got mind control over all of these dancers.
Yes.
They're just doing his bidding. It's all part of the master plan.
He's part Svengali, part pimp, is what I can figure.
Well, that's why in my mind I was making the staying alive connection, because Mike, he's an unemployed dancer who has his own apartment in New York City. So I was thinking he must be like the Finola Hughes character, who is independently wealthy, so she can do whatever she wants as a dancer. And that's why Mike, can do this. And Maggie at least is a choreographer, so she can,
she can afford the high chair in the window.
Yeah, exactly. And then and that's when we get to what is probably the centerpiece of Dance Goddess. And I'd say I know it sounds like we've only talked about maybe 5 minutes of a movie, but we're a half hour in at this point.
At least
we've got 50. We've only got about 45 minutes left. And that's when we get the centerpiece, which is the Reach for the Sunshine performance, which takes place in the middle of actual Times Square. And a part of me thought this is going on way too long. But at the same time, I was hypnotized by it, just by the fact that this is really happening in the middle of Times Square.
Oh no, this is generally my favorite part of the movie. So the fact that it takes up an ungodly amount of screen time did not bother me, partially because it is basically just kind of renegade dancing without a permit in the middle of Times Square. You can see people in the background that are just like watching being like, what the hell is even going on here?
The fat guy smoking that just stood there for like a little while was by far my favorite extra in the film.
I was just watching it from a continuity perspective. Like, they actually do a fairly good job.
I watched it twice for continuity just to see what happened in the background.
Yeah.
Come to me and I'm here to understand. When you're feeling cold, reach out for my hand. When you're feeling cold, reach out for my hand.
Plus, you get the background of like the movie theater marquees, and I'm sorry, anything where you've got a Times Square movie theater marquee going on in the background, and you can see like, oh, Disorderly is playing there.
Lost Boys and Disorderly.
Put a rain check on that, because that may be a trivia question coming up. We've been presented with this thing where Maggie and Julie should be in competition with each other, because Mike is sort of like the center of their triangle. But instead, like, Maggie sees something that isn't really apparent to us, but she tells Julie that she's a great dancer and that if she wants to get with Mike, to be aware that they've slept together. And Julie at this point says she has no interest in Mike, and that gives Maggie her word that the only thing she cares about is becoming a dancer on Broadway. And then Julie tells Mike that from now on they're just platonic friends, and she doesn't want him to cheat on Maggie. And Mike tells her, I don't like platonic relationships.
I just had a talk with Maggie, and I'm not going to let you cheat on her anymore.
But you know I don't love her.
Don't tell me that. From now on, Mike, our relationship is strictly platonic.
But I don't like platonic relationships.
Well, then that's too bad.
And she refuses his offer to be a good friend and a secret admirer.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't want a secret admirer.
Yeah.
You know? Like, okay,
she wants open admirers.
Yes.
And
well,
that's
I
what
took that more as like, you can't be secret because I know you you dig me, so that's already out. This is also maybe the moment that got the biggest laugh from me in the entire movie. After they do the big number, and Maggie's like, hey, let me teach you something so we can use this shot, this hidden camera in Times Square a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And she teaches her this move, and she leaves. And Mike comes up and says he wants to talk. And she's like, go sit in that bench for a minute. And she goes back out and does like 2 rounds of the same number.
Yeah.
Just 'cause, and then walks right over. It's a matter of 6 seconds that she tells him to go sit on that bench and wait for her. And she does these 2 reaches, and then it's okay, I'm good. And then she walks over and they have that conversation.
So Doc gets Julie an audition with Jack, a Broadway director who's mounting a new show. And then sort of this is to me where I feel like this is why I believe like that it's possible we're supposed to think the ending is bittersweet. And that's because intercut with sort of her first audition is we see her kissing Jack in the park. So this idea that she's sort of engaging in sort of a casting couch sort of thing to get this role. But again, it's not like we see her sleeping with him. We just see her like sort of like almost innocently kissing him in this sort of romantic location, in a scene that sort of like has sort of like the energy of sort of like a Bollywood interlude with the lovers in sort of like the forest talking to each other. But this is the only indication I feel like at the end where she's like, where it freeze frames on her at her triumph, that we're supposed to go, oh, but what did you have to do to get here, Julie? But because it's so like, innocuous that it
felt like a fantasy montage that was crammed in there. And I'm like, am I supposed to believe that happened? Was that like in her imagination about what she needed to do? I assumed it did, and I read it the same way you did, and in my freeze frame finale that I was watching. There was a few of those moments where there was these real quick cuts to bizarre scenes and imagery. And the other time I wrote that one down is like, did that happen? And then there's a scene of the Statue of Liberty way off in the distance, and that score I was talking about earlier kicks in. It was like, okay, so no, Statue of Liberty is the murderer. She's like, someone has to do this. But then it's like, are we commenting on, seriously, are we commenting on like the American dream? Like, was there actual intent to show that there's this dark side to what's happening here? And I have no idea. I have no idea what he wants me to think.
I would love to believe that there is this dark side, but I honestly, my takeaway was just like, well, here's some stuff that happened. Maybe, let's get back to the dancing. Now we haven't had dancing in 5 minutes.
Julie has no dark edge.
No,
like there's no point where you go, oh, like there's the diva inside of Julie. She just seems like a really easy lay more than anything else.
Unless that's kind of the dark edge where she's actually just this sociopath who is just gonna sleep her way into having a dream on Broadway. And
but what happened to the girl in the first scene? We don't know.
She became a star. Well, she does. We do
star.
see she is in the back when her for Julie's first audition. That same dancer is one of the dancers. So my part of it was like, has she been usurped? Or is she just part of the cult and like, everyone helps everyone else audition? Like it's hard to tell, but I still I found myself looking at her more than I found myself looking at Julie during these performances. So I was sort of like, maybe you should sort of switch them, either that or the woman, the Susan Powter dancer who, and I would say like
there were only a couple of, we'll call them good dancers in this group.
Yeah.
And your eye automatically went to them. None of them happened to be the leads.
Yeah. That's one thing where it should have been really easy in New York City in the 80s to find really good dancers who just don't happen to have a gig at that moment. Like, to me, that should have been the easiest part of this movie. But I feel like in the next scene, because what happens is that Julie does her first audition, and despite having apparently slept with him, the director is still like, yeah, I'm just still going to see at least one more audition. So they decide to do one out in public again, this time like sort of on the ocean front. But this time I noticed that the dancers were like, there were a couple of dancers who we'd seen before, but for the most part, this was just a new crew of dancers. So I felt like this might have been a thing where this scene was added to the movie when it came in too short. And so that's why they were like, okay, we need one more dance scene to get this to 82 minutes. And because it's a long one too, but also I feel like the thing that strikes me is that it also has probably the most thematic song in it. And so I wasn't quite sure like if that was just the case, or like Hamid was sort of like, no, we'll give her 2 auditions. That way we have two dance numbers.
Maybe this life wasn't perfect. There was no happiness I can recall, but I know in time I will have it all.
In the Times Square dance, there was a dancer that I thought looked like Rosie Perez, so I went and zoomed in.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was false alarm.
I can't
false
think
alarm.
of the one who was in full Cyndi Lauper mode. There's a lot of, this is a very 80s movie, but in a lot of fabulous ways. Like, I will say this, like, I love Julie's outfits throughout this. Like, some of them were just very out there. All of the other dancers, their outfits were...
Maggie's Boy George outfit was phenomenal.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I love Maggie's look. Like, if that is what the reefer does to you, then by all means, keep it going. And I found it interesting. Maria Neenan, who plays Julie, was what actually does have a Broadway credit. Like, so she was,
checked it out,
she was
Harold
on
Robin
Broadway.
Yeah,
right, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, so she was, and this was about this time, so she was. She did find her dream. She did dance on Broadway.
Well, yeah.
So maybe that's the happy ending for the actors themselves.
So the song in this number is specifically about the struggle and hardships Julie has faced on her way to making her dream come true, which is weird because she's been in New York City for a few days and is already close to getting exactly what she wanted.
I know she's already ridden in a boat.
Yeah.
She's
seen the Statue of Liberty. She's had sex at least twice. Like, I mean, what more does she want?
Ping pong. Horse carriage.
Mm-hmm.
It's done. You're done.
That's the city.
In another sort of move where it's clear that Hamid doesn't quite understand how the whole Broadway thing works, is Jack casts Julie as his lead dancer, and then tells her that she's going to have to work really hard because the show opens in 2 weeks. Like, I could understand, like, if there was
turnaround.
If there was a plot where like his lead dancer broke her leg and the understudy broke her leg too, then that would make sense. But for a Broadway show is usually workshopped for years in advance of it actually, hitting Broadway. And whether or not like sort of the actors in the workshop ever actually, get on the Broadway stage is one thing. But for an actor like sort of like in a new show to basically like be there for 2 weeks, I mean, that just is not how it works.
Well, maybe this show, it was experimental, it was the 80s, maybe it was mostly improv. It's like some
well, it is a show that apparently consists of one dance number that is like 8 minutes long, and that's the entire show. And that's another thing why this like had a lot of Staying Alive vibes for me, is that one of the things I love about Staying Alive is when we finally get to see what we see of Satan's Alley, at no point do we go, well, this could have been a Broadway show. Like, it's one of those things that can only exist on film as a show. Like, no one would actually pay to see Satan's Alley, but then that makes sense because no one actually paid to see Staying Alive. So, I mean, I guess that tracks.
And did anybody actually ever pay to see Dance Goddess? Did this ever receive any kind of distribution?
The one thing I read when I discovered it, I did some research and I found one Letterboxd review from someone who I think it, like, there have been attempts to sort of turn it into a room type of film. I think that's why it's on Tubi. And I think that's why, like, the print is gorgeous. Like, it actually looks like it's in a really, it's not like a grimy sort of grubby print on Tubi. Like, it looks really good for as good as the movie is ever going to look. So apparently it was screened when sort of the distributor that put it on Tubi, like they did a screening of it at some festival. And the person who reviewed it was saying like that the people behind them were laughing and really enjoying it. And he goes around and he asked them about it. And it turns out they were in it. It was a case of like there only being 5 people in the theater and 2 of them were people who are actually in it.
It would have been amazing though to turn around behind you and there's Julie right there.
Yeah.
She's like, this is my dream. It's here.
Honey, you have a good rehearsal now.
Okay. You gonna meet me after the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike calls Julie and tells her that Maggie and him have split up it's because she does drugs. She does the marijuana and he doesn't like that. Even though in their dance number, he does drugs with her. He's a total hypocrite. He's participating.
He's involved.
And Julie is thrilled because now she can, have the role and the man she wants at the same time. She doesn't have to share him with Maggie. And she puts on a sexy blue dress and meets with Mike on the roof of her apartment. And Julie says she loves him, even though we've literally only seen them in maybe 2 or 3 scenes together. But I mean, she's had sex with him.
Chemistry is unrivaled.
They rode a carriage together.
Yeah.
In New York.
And then Mike proposes to her, and she answers yes to him by dancing in response. And I feel like, I feel like if I had to pick my favorite, as much as I love the Times Square sequence, if I had to pick my favorite dance number, it is probably their sort of like their rooftop ballet, which is just really just has no reason to exist in terms of the plot. I can't imagine the most threadbare, plotless Roger Corman movie being this jump in logic of like, just like, yeah, we had sex once and have talked a couple of times, let's get married.
I really love you too. But you can't separate me from my dream. I am that dream.
I understand that. I want to help you realize that dream. I want to make it our dream. I want to marry you.
And then after this rooftop dance sequence, we're opening night of this play. And I've watched it a couple times now, and I still don't think the play has an actual name. Like, we don't get a Satan's Alley to at least hang our hat on. It's obviously being performed on a high school stage. It's not an actual Broadway stage. And Julie is the main dancer. And Jack, the producer, isn't happy with what he's seeing. He tells the choreographer, she needs to be sexier. She needs more fire. And the male choreographer, like he's basically telling the choreographer to basically change the choreography hours before, like they're ready to perform, like opening night. And the choreographer just tells Julie, be sexier. And then we open, and the curtain is rising. And the number is about life in the big city. We see sailors, schoolgirls, gangsters, hookers, socialite, and a mugger who we know is a mugger because he's wearing a mask, like sort of like a Hamburglar mask. And he comes in and he robs Julie's purse, because she's dressed in sort of like a kind of like gingham, like what's Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz type of dress. So that's showing her innocence. But then almost immediately she's surrounded by the denizens of the city. And then they disappear, and she's in this sexy, like glittery sort of mini skirt. And that's actually, I actually, because I made that sort of Staying Alive connection when I was watching it, I decided to rewatch Staying Alive last night because I bought the 4K that recently came out. Kino released it on 4K, and of course I had to buy it. If you're wondering why that movie is on 4K, the answer is for Allan Mott. And I watched it, and the funny thing is that I've seen this movie many times, but after having watched it so closely to Dance Goddess, a part of me was going, wait, is this movie actually good? Because suddenly, like all the dialogue scenes that seem so weird now actually feel like real dialogue scenes where actual character development is happening.
I'm gonna explain it to you, Allan. All right.
Yeah.
And this might go right over your head because I know how much you follow baseball.
Yeah.
But when a hitter prepares to step into the plate, they're on deck.
Yeah.
And they're swinging a heavy bat.
Yeah.
To get loosened up for the pitching.
Yeah.
Because the balls come fast and you got to be ready.
Yeah. Don't they put that rubber thing on their bat?
The bat there's a donut, but there's also weight bats and things. But anyway, the bat that they use is lighter. So it feels like you can hit anything.
Yeah.
No matter how fast it's coming. This is what it's like watching Dance Goddess's dialogue. Yeah. And then going to Staying Alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the heavy lifting. And you get there and suddenly Staying Alive just seems right.
I will say this. I think in fairness, in my old age, I am just becoming more of a fan of the auteur side of Sylvester Stallone, because a couple weeks ago I watched Rocky IV again, and I saw the ridiculousness, but at the same time in my head I was like, I think this is a well-made movie. Like,
I will argue that it is very effectively made.
Yeah.
I mean, the subject matter.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like it's ridiculous, and I think that's where I'm gonna have to land with Staying Alive now. It's a ridiculous movie, but it's a well-made ridiculous movie, and I thank Dance Goddess for allowing me to be opening to that possibility. You should see the look on Paul's face. He's sort of like, can I imagine a scenario in which this is possible?
I mean, you're kind of selling me on Staying Alive. I mean, I just went to see a midnight screening of Cruising, so I am not, invulnerable to the point of tourist messes. So I
will say Staying Alive is gayer than Cruising is. So I mean, there is that.
I hope that goes on the future 4K Cruising editions that are released.
Yeah.
Not as gay as Staying Alive.
Again, it sounds like we've talked about a movie and we're only 45 minutes into it. But no, the number ends, she gets a standing ovation, and that's the end of the movie.
There's not a lot of movie. in Dance Goddess. There's a lot of dancing in Dance Goddess.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of like stuff happening in Dance Goddess, which I appreciated, because sometimes you're in the mood to just not watch something where you have to follow a plot or worry about conflict or care. So, Dance Goddess really fits that bill where you can just kind of like absorb it and just bask in its
it's a glow.
Unique. It is a glow. It is a glow. It is a very unique glow.
But I think we should be thankful that it dispensed with its plot based on what we got.
Yeah.
Like there are filmmakers, and you really wish they would not plot.
If this was an actual Bollywood movie, it would be 3 hours long.
Because it needed plot.
And there would be so much plot. Way too much plot. Like we need a machete to cut through all of this plot. So it's almost like he decided, I'm going to take sort of like the thing I like about Bollywood, which are the musical numbers, and just cut out all of the stuff I don't like, which are the long scenes of people talking and doing. Yeah.
Anything else?
Obviously, Julie has no arc whatsoever. She goes to New York City to become a dance star, becomes one. No effort, no conflict, and like I said, like again, I'm repeating what I said before, but again, the ending just struck me as like I'm not sure what I'm supposed to feel here, because it feels like it's like, oh, her dream came true, but just knowing enough about what I know about South Asian cinema, that there's enough peppered in there that we're supposed to go, oh, like this is a bad thing that she's become a star, because like look at what she had to get here, and look at the kind of people she had to associate with. Like she had to associate with people who did drugs to become a star, and so it's a very difficult film to read, but I think that's what makes it worth watching.
No, I kind of like your take on it as it being Hamid Khan's like addressing of Bollywood norms, and being like, no, we're just going to strip all this stuff out. None of this is necessary. We just want dancing. We want stuff that moves from dance sequence to dance sequence. I don't want to worry about any of these people. I just want them to be happy and find their dreams and make it from England to New York City with nothing but a dance belt and a tube of chapstick and just dance on Broadway. And that is Dance Goddess in a nutshell. And it fulfills that requirement in a lean 82 minutes, because it is blissfully short. Despite all the plot and such. So I think it succeeds at whatever the hell it was Hamid Khan was trying to do.
And I talked about sort of some of the sequences going on a bit too long, but I was never bored watching. And that's to me why it should be at the level of sort of like The Room and Birdemic, is because it's a badly made movie that is just, I felt, engrossing from frame one to the end. Like I just was all in from beginning to end. There was never a point where I was like,
there's so much
maybe
eye
I should
candy.
It's
not, I would say, hardly ever intentional. I mean, the costuming and the dancing, yes, clearly front and center, but there's just so much going on around. Like you like the poster in the apartment, like you're fixated on this Pandora's box poster. You're like, why? Yeah. And you're constantly searching for answers the entire time this movie is going, and then it shifts before you can come up with any sort of conclusion.
We didn't talk about the Coke.
No. Why are there Coke bottles with straws everywhere? Does everyone need a straw?
Did Dance Goddess get a product placement deal with Coca-Cola? Is that why we're seeing so many Coca-Cola bottles? Or was it just the case where Hamid Khan liked Coke and that's what they drank on set?
Fuck Pepsi. Give me the Coke with a straw. Are you a heathen?
And this may have been new Coke at the time too, so No,
Yeah.
it's a risky
Was
premise.
it 86?
It would have been shot in
87,
87
yeah.
because of the
Yeah,
Marquis.
no, it was New Coke 86. So like we got this. It was like 6
It
months,
may have
9
been Coke
months.
Classic. I think this may have been Coke Classic when.
Okay.
Yeah. Because New Coke was a very short-lived phenomenon. As someone who lived through that terrible time, I can tell you it was blessedly short.
I published a short memoir about New Coke.
I used to drink a lot of Coke too, though, just because I liked sequels, not because I like drinking it. I appreciate, a good follow-up.
I don't think that ever came to Canada. I think that was one that missed us.
Oh,
I remember hearing about it, but I never had it. Like the one soft drink horror story I always talk about was when I found a bottle of mint flavored Sprite. And it's like, well, now I know what drinking toothpaste tastes like.
That's not a thing. Was that a thing?
It was a thing.
I think
yeah.
we just found somebody that shoved mint in a Sprite can.
No, it
Just put
actually
their
on
gum
the
in
bottle
there.
it said, mint flavored Sprite. It did not last very long for very good reasons. So I did do a trivia thing for this one, but it's slightly shorter. In the past, I've done 10 questions. And this one, just because Dance Goddess is so obscure that trying to come up with 10 questions related to it was just beyond my ability.
It starts at a base level of obscurity, and you really can't adjust the quiz to match. I was wondering what you were going to do with the quiz today, because I found myself challenged to come up with questions I would have asked.
And all of these are like very loosely related. Only one is directly tied to the film.
One of the answers is The Hitcher.
That isn't one of the questions, but so when they perform Reach for the Sunshine in Times Square, you can see a movie theater sign advertising 6 different movies in the background. Get 1 point for each title you can name.
Lost Boys, Disorderly, The Hitcher, Superman 4, and Monster Squad.
Also, Back to the Beach and The Witches of Eastwick, which is being billed as Witches.
Yeah,
but
there was no Hitcher. There was no Hitcher. Yeah, it was The Lost Boys.
I think that was Witches.
The Hitcher is in an earlier scene.
Oh, it's the early. I specified the Reach for the Sunshine.
Oh, I just wrote a list of movies that were in the background.
Yeah. So it's The Lost Boys, Disorderly, Monster Squad, Witches of Eastwick, or Witches. I checked to make sure that it wasn't Witches. That was 89. Yeah. Back to the Beach and Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Okay, so the second question is a follow-up to the first question. Bollywood superstar Shah Rukh Khan regularly makes the top 10 list of the world's wealthiest actors. Which performer who starred in a movie mentioned in the answer to the first trivia question currently takes the #1 spot?
Tom Noonan. Wait, no.
It is literally that level of like, what?
So what is the #1 spot of highest?
Who is the wealthiest actor in the world globally?
Wealthiest actor.
And they starred in one of those 6 movies.
Jack Nicholson?
Jamie Gertz.
Oh.
She is worth $3 billion.
How the hell is Jamie Gertz worth $3 billion?
Because she married a very wealthy man who helped her make some very good investments. And she is now part owner of the Atlanta Hawks.
Well, that is fascinating.
Yeah, her husband is worth $12 billion, so together the two of them are worth $15 billion.
Jamie Gertz.
Speaking of Jamie Gertz, have you seen Alphabet City? I really dig that movie.
Alphabet City is
it's
amazing.
Yeah,
it is. It was a blind buy when
Fun City?
Fun City had it, and I'm like, oh, this is great. And I'm always leery about like kind of early 80s New York kind of dingy crime movies, just because they have a tendency to be like so grimy that I'm uncomfortable watching these things. Alphabet City isn't, which I was like, I'm thankful for. Like there's bad stuff going on, but it's kind of in the background, so it's not,
I mean, it really sets itself up with that opening scene where he's getting dressed to go out to do his drug duties, and he's got it's like a 2-minute like assembly of guns and knives and leather.
No, Alphabet City is really fantastic. It was one of my favorite movies of last year. Just kind of discovering it.
I'll have to check that out. I saw the Fun City edition came out, but it's one I haven't seen yet.
And I'm gonna go. I'm gonna
put it somewhere you can find it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go gay all of a sudden, but Vincent Spano is super hot in that movie. So, and I do appreciate that.
Question number 3. Dance Goddess often feels like a low-budget version of Sylvester Stallone's Staying Alive. Staying Alive co-starred Fenella Hughes, who was a backup dancer in Allan's favorite bad movie musical. What is that film? And bonus point for knowing the number where Fenella Hughes is most prominently featured.
Oh shit! I should know this.
You absolutely should know this.
Because she's in The Apple. But I don't remember which number she's in.
It is The Apple, and the number she is in is Gimme Speed.
Oh, okay.
She actually has a very prominent close-up of her like leaning down over a motorcycle, because every time I see it, I go, "There's Fenella Hughes from Staying Alive."
America, the land of the free, is shooting up with pure energy, and every day she has to take more speed.
Oh, okay, neat.
Okay, but when are we doing the Aspen Extreme episode?
Actually, I have my high school drama teacher was in drama classes with Paul Gross, the star of Aspen Extreme.
Naturally.
He's a Canadian actor, better known for Do South. So number 4, David McDermott, who plays the dubbed Mike in Dance Goddess, is also mistakenly credited on IMDb as playing a character called David McDermott in this 1996 biopic about a famous street artist who was embraced by New York's art community before his death at the age of 27.
Is that the Basquiat year?
Yeah, that was 97 Basquiat.
Yeah, because you can't with the case of Dance Goddess, you cannot trust the IMDb listings of the people associated with, because Hamid Khan, his one other credit is a mistake. That's actually a different Hamid Khan, who's actually the son of a very famous Bollywood choreographer. And that's the subject of our 5th and final question we'll get to. But also David McDermott, he shares a name with a well-known New York artist from that same period who was part of a team called McDermott and Go, who like I believe up till 1999 they spent several years like dressing in like Victorian garb, and they were like sort of like, it was very much about sort of getting the world away from time and that. And I basically, the reason why I found this out, because I went down a rabbit hole this afternoon because I wanted to hear David McDermott's real voice to see if my sort of idea of why he was dubbed was correct. And I couldn't find that David McDermott, but I found the David McDermott whose IMDb page he is like mistakenly on, and he definitely would have been dubbed for the reason that I suggested. He's just not the same guy.
So our David McDermott, the dance goddess David McDermott, he's just a one and done. He's just mysterious.
I think so.
Much like
it's not that mysterious. It's just not that mysterious.
Well, just like George Gilmore or David Gurion. Like they do one movie, it's so perfect. They never have to do anything again.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that.
Yeah. You know? Okay, so for our last question, the IMDb incorrectly credits Dance Goddess's writer, director, producer, co-star Hamid Khan as the assistant choreographer of a Sridevi movie called Najina. Which of the 3 following synopses of actual Sridevi movies is an accurate depiction of that film's plot? Okay, so this is synopsis A. Sridevi is a famous singer who is framed and receives a death sentence for selling cocaine while searching for her long-lost father, who turns out to have been her lawyer all along. Plot B. Sridevi goes on a full Charles Bronson revenge rampage when her stepdaughter's rapists are set free by India's corrupt legal system. And C. Sridevi plays a cobra who can transform into a woman who marries a man so she can avenge the death of her previous cobra husband.
I'm watching C.
I'm watching all of these. They all sound good, but I would go with the snake one. Yeah.
Yeah, C is Vagina. Yeah, that is the correct one. A is Gumra. I highly recommend it. It is. I watched it on Apple TV, and it's pretty amazing. B is actually her last movie. Sadly, she died of a heart attack at way too young of an age, and it's called Mother. And it should be fairly easy to track down, and I highly recommend it. It would make my top 5 of, if I made a top 5 of my favorite rape revenge movies, it would probably come in third after Mrs. 45 and Revenge. I think it's quite good. But yeah, so if you're looking for, I haven't seen of the 3, the one I haven't seen is Nagina, and it's absolutely the one I want to see. I thank all the two of you for indulging me in my desire to talk about Dance Goddess now that I've got it out of my system.
Of Cinema Shame is complete.
Yeah.
No, I am glad to have been introduced into its magistry. So I may use it for a streaming movie night sometime. You know, if I'm doing
I was kind of hoping you would say that. I feel like that would be the greatest honor you could pay me. Is to
either a dance theme or a New York theme or a Following Your Dreams theme or a Coca-Cola theme, whatever.
Yeah.
I can kind of work that in.
Movies with ping pong.
Ping pong. You know, it's endless possibilities. Movies with drugs.
In fairness,
just one drug though. I think it's
a drug. Movies with a drug.
Yeah. In fairness to James, the next one we have scheduled for recording is Nashville. So I feel like that is a very Cinema Shame old school episode. So we're keeping it real by going back and forth between the Allan episodes and the James episodes.
You have chosen wise.